Welcome to Lesson 3, Preparing the Income Statement for Mike's Bikes. As you can see from the last lesson, we prepared the transactions in a database for Mike's Bicycle Shop for the month of July 2013. At the end of the month, Mike had to make 3 adjusting journal entries before he could prepare his 3 formal financial statements. Today, we're going to take all changes in Mike's equity earned during the month, of which there are 6 changes, and we're going to prepare the formal income statement. So let's take a look at a brand new statement called Mike's Bikes Income Statement, and we'll give it a title. We'll call it Mike's Bike Business Income Statement for month ended July 31, 2013. Now, the income statement summarizes Mike's revenues that he's earned from his bike business, and we're going to subtract out all of his expenses. Now, in a world without taxes, our goal is to prepare a sheet where we can take the total of all of his revenues, subtract out all the expenses, and come up with a net income number. And let's go back to the database. If Mike says how much is net income for July, we simply add up all changes in equity earned, of which there are these 6, and net income, I can tell you by looking at the number right there, is $16,550. But to make this net income show up very clearly in a nice formal format, we take all of our expenses and revenues from our database right there, and we park it in our income statement temporarily. So we'll put all the numbers right there. So Mike's revenues were $30,000 from bike sales. His expenses were, let's see, his first expense was cost of bikes sold. So we're going to subtract his major expense, cost of bikes sold. And in parentheses, I'll put an expense there to remind us that minus 10 grand, when subtracted from his bike sales, gives him a gross profit of, the net of those two numbers is $20,000. This is known as gross profit or gross margin. From his gross margin, we subtract out our, let's call these operating expenses. And operating expenses will be everything except interest or dividend income or expense, or gains or losses. But right now, our only 2 operating expenses are insurance expense, which we see as minus 500, and our depreciation, or actually depreciation was 500, our insurance is 200. So let's label this guy depreciation expense. And when we add up all of our operating expenses, we see that let's see, I think we may have forgotten one expense. Oh yes, we have advertising as well. So we take all of our expenses, except for cost of goods sold and interest expense. These are known as operating expenses. We'll add those 3 up. And to make this look nice and neat, let's put a top bar or a top border and a bottom border there. And let's do the same formatting. The format we have there, we want to format that with a top and bottom border. So our operating expenses total $1,700, getting us a temporary number called income from operations. So that's our gross profit less operating expenses. So in Excel, we can go equal E8 minus E16. And I think we need to not subtract those, we need to add those, because the operating expenses are already negative. So 20 grand positive netted against minus 1,700 gives us 18,300. And now we want to add or subtract our non-operating items. which in this case is only our interest expense. Copy that baby right there. And so now we've taken care of all changes in our equity earned. So we take our income from operations, we subtract our interest expense to get down to a number called net income before tax. And that would be going just a little too fast here. Let's add up those two numbers right there. And that is our net income of $16,550, which in the first period must agree with that number right there. So it's all of our expenses, of which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, netted against our one revenue right there. That gives us $16,550. This is called net income before tax. If we're living in a world without taxes, that would just be net income. Now, in conclusion, a business entity's income statement is merely all of its changes in net worth or equity earned as a result of selling products or services and incurring expenses to generate those revenues. So our revenues less all 5 of our expenses net to $16,550. Before sending this off to the banker, we might want to format all those numbers. Let's format those to be currency. And let's have no decimal points, but dollar signs. And that looks just a little nicer. Another name for net income, let's insert a comment here. We'll call that, another name for that, it would be called earnings or profit. This concludes Lesson 3, preparing the income statement for Mike's Bikes.